Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a art-based commentary. This time, we're actually focusing on a character instead of a singular piece. But instead of just doing this all by myself, I thought I would bring in the official voice actress for the character in question. So join me tonight is my friend, Wyn.
Hello.
Hi. So Wyn, the character, of course, we're going to be talking about is Buuu. Just to give you an idea of where Buuu came from as far as inspiration goes. So everyone's had like a boogeyman or scary monster under the bed situation growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while I'm not going to pry into any fears you may have, Wyn, I will openly admit that growing up in the early 90s, there was sort of a second paranormal craze going on in television, or at least it seemed that way. And of course, the X-Files, I think, kind of capped up everything in that era, too, because when that showed up, it was just, aliens everywhere.
Yeah, and because of the craze and it being on Fox, since I was a weird little kid with a very overactive imagination, as my sister and I were watching it on our old big screen before we eventually finally got around to replacing it in the den, our big screen died and I thought aliens blew up our TV. Like I said, in my defense, I was like 7 to 8 years old.
Yeah, and for some reason, I foolishly just watched like alien abduction related entertainment a lot as a kid. I remember there was this one miniseries, and it was basically about a woman having to deal with the trauma of constantly being abducted or dealt with aliens throughout the whole thing. I remember there was one scene where like the woman in question has a flashback to her childhood. And she's with her sister, and they chase another little kid that lures them to the middle of a field, and there's a parked spaceship. And of course, the camera is so close to the back of the kid's head that when the kid turns around, he has an alien face. And I remember that scaring the hell out of me as a kid. So needless to say, great, like everyone had like boogeymen or werewolves or vampires. I had little gray aliens. Cut to many years later in my teenage years, I kind of had a Batman moment where I was just kind of coming up with characters based on things that inspired me as a kid. It's like, how do I take something that I was terrified and turn it into something that I'm not terrified of? And this was during the early stages of G.L.U E. I had to fill in the G.L.U E organization with every kind of random villain I could. Some were created for the comic itself, others were just designs that were floating around. I have no idea if Buuu was a character who existed beforehand. And I don't know if I ever shared this with you, Wyn, or anybody else, but Buuu was originally supposed to be male.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, and then when I reread the comic several years later, I realized that there were no pronouns within the dialogue for Buuu. So yeah, Buuu became a female fairly later, and I think it kind of worked out well because the character has become kind of popular in its own right. I took one of my greatest fears growing up and turned into this adorable little silly thing. As far as Buu's design goes, like, granted, gray aliens, they have the creepy black eyes. Not only was it like an aesthetics decision to give her like pupils and a little more less creepy eyes, her outfit too, I didn't want to make her just a regular gray, so I gave her this, for lack of a better term, space pope appearance. And because she's a telepath, she has a gigantic eyeball-like jewel on her head that helps magnify her telepathic abilities. Her backstory is that, during her days at Intergalactic Community College, she became kind of bored of her lot in life. So she decided go to Earth and become a superhero. Unfortunately, she could only really get a stint as a sidekick, sort of a Robin spoof called Boo the Boyish Wonder. And this was for a radio play. A mutual acquaintance of ours, Andres, aka Kaiju Noir, he recommended Wyn here. The thing about Buuu is that she is ultimately kind of like a country girl or down-to-earth person at heart, which is one of the reasons why she lives upstate in California when she's not doing supervillain stuff, and she's well known amongst the community of farmers and other people there. But as her days as a sidekick, it was not good because she was working for Waffle-Man, sort of like Batman, if Batman was also a breakfast cereal mogul. And this is her outfit.
Yeah, it works.
Yes. And of course she has a little waffle that she's going to throw at a bad guy. And just to let you know, these are technically goggles that are made to look like normal human eyes. So I don't know if we ever animated this or made a live action version of the costume, it'd just be gigantic googly eyes that just move about while she's like, I don't know, how creepy is this?
I think it's pretty funny, but if you ever want to do an alternate art design and post it, by all means. It's kind of how in fighting games there's alternate skins.
Oh yeah, that is true. I could play around with it. I could even do like the scary, edgy version of Boo from the 90s. Now thinking about it, she actually looks a little bit like the original Green Lantern.
She does look like Alan Scott.
Yes, she does. Now, Boo's next appearance in video form was for the G.L.U.E podcast, and it was kind of a comedy podcast. It went on a little too long, I think, at 40-ish minutes. But the ending, comically, it leads to a giant battle against the cops. Unfortunately, there was no way I was going to animate that, or Brayton was going to animate it, or I was going to draw all the characters. So we just went with this ridiculous little paper puppet gag, where I made a bunch of paper puppets, put them on like sticks, and just wiggled them about. But yeah, this is Boo with a laser rifle gun going crazy. Maybe I went a little too far with the violence in the background.
Oh, she's so menacingly adorable.
Okay, so Boo, she used to be a superhero, but then her time as a sidekick and probably her time on her own as a superhero didn't work out so well. And in the lore of the show, oh, that's kind of a bad word, isn't it? It's become a bad word, lore. Boo eventually, for a very brief time, she was enemies with the early version of G.L.U.E until eventually she just kind of gave up and joined them and found like a very bizarre support group with them. And she sort of serves as the resident telepath or mind reader of the organization. But yeah, there's Boo being nefarious. Now, this is a random picture I just drew of Boo with Jack Hawkson. There's a lot of animosity between them, and I think that might have to do more with Jack Hawkson just as a really annoying and horrible character than it does with Boo. Of course, the fact that she can read his mind doesn't help either. Okay, so what do we got next? Yeah, so this was sort of a Halloween gag picture inspired by the opening of Bride of Frankenstein, inspired by the real-life creation of Frankenstein, when Mary Shelley, along with her husband and Lord Byron, they all had a weekend together, and that's when they came up with Scary Stories, and that was basically the origins of Frankenstein. But this was sort of a gag inspired by the opening of Bride of Frankenstein, because me and Brayton noticed just how way too friendly Mary Shelley, Percy, and Lord Byron are with each other. And I think that's just the actors kind of over camping it up a bit. And we always thought about what it would be like if we like kind of took it to a silly extreme. And one idea was to have like Boo, Jake Tanaka, which is Boo's boyfriend, and Jack Hawkson, respectively. I've drawn Boo without her helmet. And originally, it was supposed to be a large brain housed in a sort of see-through transparent carapace, what a turtle shell is, basically. So it was sort of like a biological helmet. But after talking with Brayton and even you, Wyn, we came to the decision that no, she just has really interesting pink hair, just to kind of make the character a little more appealing.
I do like that little design. It kind of adds a bit of extra panache and pizzazz. If she's not wearing her helmet, they could see, oh, shiny, poofy pink hair.
Okay, so funny story about this. One day, I was cleaning up the backyard and going through some old wood, and I found these two bed knobs that were in really good condition. I decided to kind of save them from the wood heap, so to speak. But I had them in my living room for the longest time. I was wondering what the heck I was going to do with these doorknobs. And then it hit me. Alien. Boo. But yeah, this was an early version of it, and I just took some pictures of it and around my neighborhood. The top here, it's a cardboard roll that you get duct tape on that was completely free of duct tape, and then I recovered it with shiny duct tape, blue duct tape. But this was just a very basic kind of test to see how it would look. But yeah, so far this thing has been a lot of fun. It's a neat little decoration in my living room, but it's going to be used for filming purposes.
She's adorable, and if you ever find like a pink little Party City wig or extension, you could probably glue it to the bottom of the helmet to kind of give a nod to the new addition of her hair.
Yeah, a hot glue gun and a little mini wig, and boom, there we go. And I'll put it in the hat too, so that way if I have to change Boo's headgear for future videos, I don't have to worry about it hair being permanently stuck to her little wooden head here. Okay, we'll go on to the next picture then. Okay, so the thing behind this was that my brother Miguel had a fantasy-based costume party around Halloween, and it was basically coming as a fantasy-based character, sort of like a mini Renaissance festival in his backyard. And I thought as a goof, I would just repurpose some of my old sketches and make like these little fantasy wanted posters. Despite the fact that all the other wanted posters are inspired by actual fantasy characters, both ones I created and ones I just repurposed elsewhere. This was the only original one I made. I thought it'd be funny to throw in one science fiction character amongst all the fantasy based. Something Miguel ultimately just found annoying, comically so I might add. But yeah, so yeah, the gag is that Boo probably invaded some fairy tale kingdom and she's been doing crimes here and there and she's made a nuisance of herself.
Just looks like she's channeling her inner gremlin here.
And this is another recent picture I did. I'm 50-50 with the way this one came out because this is an older character called Miss Beachball, who was sort of inspired by some of the more silly, scandalously clad monsters from Sailor Moon. And she's basically like a weird Power Ranger monster who's retired and basically lives the good life on beaches and all that. But yeah, I'm not too happy with the way this one came out for several reasons, mostly because I think the subject matter is a little too risque. It's like I should have given her a shirt or something respectable. But no, I had to fill in the background with beachgoers. Instead of just reincorporating like existing photographs or drawing regular people, I thought it'd be fun to put a lot of little cameos. So there is, of course, a Niran-based land crab, Miss Blue, that nefarious person, Jack Hawkson himself, Boo, and Demonica Lasdry, who is a heroic succubus character from some of my fantasy stories. But yeah, this is what basically she would wear at the beach. And I decided to do something tasteful, just, shirt, dress, and little socks, because I hate to say it, because she's so small, I don't think she can handle the hot sands like a small puppy would. So I just figured she'd be better off in socks. But yeah, this is basically Beach Boo, and I don't know why she decides to hang out with Jack Hawkson. Maybe this is one of their good days.
It's tasteful, it's cute, and I love that looks like her new little hair design is in a bit of a nub bun right now.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, in recent designs, I decided to kind of make her hair a little more 1950s style short. And last but not least, one of Boo's most recent appearances at the time of this video was for episode 29 of Time Mule, which is a podcast series my brother Gabe and his friends Mike and Jason do. Basically a comedy podcast where they do a bunch of different sketches, and every once in a while they'll talk about a movie or TV show at the end of it. And I was very happy to recently supply a sketch for them, because aliens do show up quite a bit throughout Time Mule. There was a Doctor Who sketch with the Dreadnoughts, so kind of inspired by that, and also just to kind of get more exposure for Boo, I decided to write a skit where Boo basically kind of shares a lot of different secrets about the alien race. And it also kind of ties back to sort of my thoughts on little gray aliens in general, because growing up as a kid, I found gray aliens utterly terrifying because, yeah, I thought they could be real and that, they could come into my bedroom any moment and steal me. But as I grew older, I'll be honest, I kind of became more cynical and less believing of all this supernatural paranormal stuff. However, with that said, I deeply appreciate it as like modern day mythology and folklore. And as just like good monster-based story fodder, it's very interesting. Though I personally get really annoyed when people are constantly using aliens as an excuse to justify human accomplishments in the past. So the whole Confessions of an Aliens was just going to kind of poke fun at that idea. With Boo basically saying, oh no, you humans made it. Yeah, there were some aliens there, but we were just caterers. Don't worry about it. And as you can see here, this is sort of a preview of what the Boo puppet is going to look like once I do some alterations. I basically took the photographs of the Boo puppet and spruced it up in Photoshop. But no, with that says, that's basically all we were going to say about Boo.
Like I said, she's a very fun and very interesting character. I have an absolute blast every time I get the opportunity to reprise my role. And I can't help but be grateful for being given the opportunity to begin with.
Oh yeah. I think, one of the things you do great about the character of Boo is that you still have that kind of cute, high-pitched voice, but you definitely add a level of country spunk to her character. It's like it really adds a lot to the character too, and I'm so grateful that Andres introduced me to you and that you've become the official voice of Boo. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want Wyn as a voice actress for your various projects, she has a very wide range, and also pay her, please. It's like there's just a design and a story here, but like your performance definitely brings the character to life.
Much appreciated, and back at you.
Okay, so that's it for the Boo video. Thank you so much, Wyn, for joining me.
Of course, anytime. I love coming back on these recording projects, especially when we do our occasional podcast stuff from time to time. It's always a pleasure to be the L&K to your Rick Dees.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. So, unfortunately, that means I'm going to have to write Disco Duck now. Darn it.